my name's Jenny. I work here at Glenbow, and I'm here today to tell you about the Rolleiflex TLR camera. This one is very similar to the one that Vivian would have had when she was photographing the street scenes of Chicago and New York, and in her travels around the world. She came to Canada and even came to Calgary. We have one photograph in this exhibition I'll show you a bit later that she apparently took while she was here. So the TLR camera is very interesting. TLR stands for twin lens reflex, and that's because it has two lenses. So, take off the lens cap. The bottom lens is the one that actually takes the photo. The shutter opens and the light goes in and exposes the film. The shutter button was right here. And you would advance the film with this little guy on the side. The reflex action is the automatic advancing of the film, so that photographers didn't have to worry about judging just right when the frame moved from one to the next. It was an automatic movement when you turn the dial, so this was an advancement in photography. The top lens is the viewfinder lens. The light comes in, reflects off a mirror, and onto a viewfinder screen, which actually is at the top of the camera. When you open it up, the viewfinder lens is there, and you're getting an interesting reflection of me in the mirror. Now, the interesting thing about the viewfinder lens, as I look down into the camera to see what I'm photographing, the mirror causes the image to be reversed from left to right. So when I move the camera, it takes a bit of getting used to because everything moves a little bit differently than what I'm expecting. So it's a testament to Vivian's skill as a photographer, actually, because here you are carrying this heavy box with knobs that you would probably get really used to moving on your own without looking. But actually focusing and making sure that you catch, especially if you're catching something in motion, the act of moving the camera can be a little bit disorienting because of the mirror action. So Vivian obviously had a lot of practice. She took thousands and thousands of photographs. Every day she wore her camera and was photographing with it. There were 100,000 negatives that were found that belonged to her, and that's an incredible amount. A lot of professional artists and photographers are known for having about 40,000 photographs in their lifetime, and so 100,000 photographs is an awful lot. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this camera is you can focus. I'll show you the movement as it focuses. You can see the lenses move out as I turn the dial and in. And the focus is actually incredibly crisp. I'll show you that a bit more later. Now, the interesting thing about the top-down viewfinder is, of course, that you can hold the camera here at waist height. And that allows you to move maybe a little bit more subtly around the world as a photographer, because people won't necessarily notice that you're carrying a camera. And you can see that in a lot of Vivian's photography, that people weren't necessarily aware that they were being photographed. And when they were, she was probably conducting a conversation with them and then taking shots as she went. So one of the details about this camera is that it is a medium format film camera. So unlike the normal, sort of more expected 35mm film that many of us are used to with single lens reflex cameras that you hold up to your face and take that way, this one, the film is larger. So the canister looks like that, and it's about 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters square. And that's why Vivian's photographs were square. So most of the images that we're most familiar with in terms of Vivian Maier's work are these square black and white street photography works, or her portraiture, and they are all square. Now, on the roll of film, there were only ever 12 exposures, which meant that for someone like Vivian, where money was tight, she had to be very, very economical about how she used her film. And you can see that in her work, that she didn't take repeated photos. A lot of professional photographers or artists will take lots and lots of shots of the same scene so they have choice and they can make sure that they capture everything they want. But Vivian was so meticulous that she would line up every shot, get the focus just so incredibly crisp, and take one photograph and then move on to the next thing. So her contact sheets, which show all the frames of the negatives all together, are like a diary of her day. You can see where she went, you can see who she photographed, and she was very choosy about what she shot. And I'll show you one of those in just a minute. So this is an example of one of Vivian's contact sheets. You can see there are 12 exposures, and contact sheets are produced so that photographers can see what they've got on their film. They're small versions, straight off the film. The negative film is exposed to light and then produces the positive image of the photograph. And this way they can see what they've got. So you can see it's more like a diary of her day. Vivian didn't take repeated shots with her camera because she had so little money, and each roll of film only had 12 exposures, and it's kind of a pain to change the film in this Rolleiflex camera, to be honest. So you could see how she'd want to conserve her shots. So she was very careful and very economical about what she took photos of during the day. It's like a diary of where she went. And you can see there may have been things like themes or things that she was particularly interested in that day. A lot of these people don't know that they were being photographed because of the way she carried the camera. Right at waist height, she's eye to eye with a child, which is a little bit of a different perspective. So here's a view looking through the viewfinder of the Rolleiflex camera. There's the front of the camera, and there is the view. I'm standing in the gallery at Glenbow, and looking through a phone, through a viewfinder, through a camera lens, across a mirror, to show you what it looks like. Vivian's self-portraits show a lot about her. You can see her sense of humor, her sense of play, her sense of experimentation. She would often capture herself in reflections in mirrors or in windows, in passing objects, and layer upon that her shadow or lining herself up with things in the background in an interesting compositional way. You can see she had an eye for surprises. That's a sprinkler. Here's a great shot of her in her bathroom, capturing herself reflected infinitely in her mirror. You can see her Rolleiflex camera. Here's another more staged shot inside her house with the camera. You can see the way the light passes through the top lens. That's why it's lit up and round. All of her photographs have so much going on. I think that's someone holding the mirror that she's reflected in. Each one has so many details. This one's one of my favorites. She captured herself reflected in a mirror that a man was carrying down the street. She appears and disappears in a moment. Vivian got her Rolleiflex camera when she was 26 in 1952. Takes a little work to find her in this one. There's the camera. And there's Vivian. It's a window display of mirrors. Now for a view of the photograph that Vivian Maier apparently took when she was in Calgary.